Hey folks, welcome back. I'm DaShannon Lovin, your friendly librarian, and I'm back with some book love, so let's chat. I don't have a ton of books that I've read since the last time I've talked to you, but I have a bunch of updates that I wanted to give you. Some books that I've gotten in recent hauls that I didn't have recommendations out there for, so I can do that a little better. Some that I've been recommending in my classroom. So if you're new here, I do teach freshman English. My whole video is definitely not just for high school students. Technically it's for adult audiences, but I always sprinkle those in there too because, you know, I like to read children's literature. I like to read young adult literature. So I'm assuming some of you do too. So I'm going to catch you up on some of those, a little bit of seasonal reading, and a little bit of like book news. And it really hasn't been that long, I don't think, since the last time I filmed. Looks like it was Wednesday, February 26th. So we're going to change that. It is currently Tuesday, March 10th. Is that right? 11th. There we go. You would think I would know because I do write it. Like I write it on the board. I've said it a dozen times today, but you know, in and out, whatever, it's a number. But today is Tuesday, March 11th. So I wanted to go ahead and get this one filmed because it's also the end of our quarter, our third quarter at school. And my grades are due on Monday. We were supposed to be traveling this weekend and now we're not. I'll be home. So hoping to get some things graded and have some time to edit a video. I also have a craft day Sunday and I have no idea what I'm doing because I wasn't supposed to be here for that. So we'll see. It'll all wash out, right? Is that what you say? I think that's what you say. But I'm excited to talk to you about some of the books that I already have stacked up here. And then when it starts looking a little bit like this, I know it's time to talk to you so that I can get those books filed and back up onto the shelves or returned to wherever they came. So now is the time. So give me a minute to move some of these things and then I'll talk to you about some of the books that I read since the last time we talked. Thanks for showing up. It is a Tuesday afternoon in Southwest Ohio. Southeast Ohio. That is terrible. Don't judge me on my lack of directional abilities. However, it's beautiful outside. I think it's like 65 maybe. So Stella and I are definitely going to take a walk after this video. My husband is taking the boat to go. There's a private lake around here that he has to be licensed under or whatever. So he's going to do that so that he can start his fishing season, which technically never stops. But I can still see his boat. So I don't know why he hasn't pulled out. I'm hoping he doesn't make a re-entry and interrupt our video. But he should be on his way out there. All right, so give me a second and I'll move these around and then we'll have a chit chat. So settle in, get yourself something to drink. I am currently drinking out of my Coffee Fox glass from, where is that? Charleston or I think it's Savannah, maybe Savannah. I think that's where I got it. Is that where the Coffee Fox is? Coffee House, I think so. And what did I pour over here? Woodchuck hard cider, I think, over ice is what I'm drinking. So that I can just settle in and relax with you. So I'll be right back. Okay, are you ready? Let's see where we stopped. So like I said, last time I filmed was in February. So I've done a little bit since then. Just to give you a quick recap because I've got it right here, so why not? So far this year, my first book was Charles Osborne's Black Coffee. It's based on an Agatha Christie play. It's a novelization. Number 2 was Nine Tailors by Dorothy L. Sayers, who was an Agatha inspiration, contemporary maybe. My number 3 was Somnophobia, Tales from the Pizzaplex, number 3, Five Nights at Freddy's, because my kids were reading it and they wanted me to read it, and I will read whatever you ask me to. Number 4 was A Walk in the Park, a true story of a spectacular misadventure in Grand Canyon by Kevin Fedarko. Memoir-ish adventure, kind of. Number 5, Crooked House by Agatha Christie. If you're new here, I have a group I started back in 2022. We are reading all of the Agatha Christie novels in in chronological order. And so we've been doing that now we're going on year 3. So whatever number that was for Crooked House. My number 6 was Part of Your World. It's the first novel in the Part of Your World series by Abby Jimenez. Love that. That was number 6. Number 7, Chainsaw Man by Tatsuki Fujimoto. Another one that my kids were reading and wanted me to read. Students, kids, whatever. Number 8 was A Deadly Judgment, Murder, She Wrote, number 6 by Jessica Fletcher, who doesn't exist, and Donald Bain. Again, that I'm just doing that one on my own. There is a Murder, She Wrote Facebook group, though, if you are a Murder, She Wrote book reader, or I don't know if it's books. I mean, I know it's books and movies, but I don't know that it really focuses on one or the other. I'm just kind of lightly in that group, but I'm reading those chronologically by myself, that series. Number 9 was Claire Kingsley's book Boyfriend. I talked to you about a speaking engagement in the last video at local Joseph Beth Booksellers, independent bookstore. She was there with Penny Reed, who I absolutely love and have read tons on. And that was my number 10, which was dating-ish. Number 11 was Agatha Christie's A Murder is Announced. Number 12 was Cradles of the Reich by Jennifer Coburn. I'm pretty sure that's the one I left off on. So let me consult my notes. Yep, that was the last one that I left off with. I know I talked to you a little bit about that one. I may have shared my review. I don't think I had written it the last time, or if I did, I think it was after the video maybe. Cradles of the Reich by Jennifer Coburn is a historical fiction book choice. It's not my best genre, not my favorite genre, but my book club, it definitely is their favorite genre, and we had chosen it for our January meeting that got canceled because the weather was terrible in Ohio at that time. So we just talked about it at our last meeting, which was last Tuesday, I think. Also, I'm pretty sure this might be my last bookish shirt. I've worn a different one, or I've tried to for most of my videos. And what is this, episode 58? So I've got a lot of bookish shirts, t-shirts, etc. Not all of them have different ones. Like I repeated a couple times before I figured out what I was doing, and then tried to do all of them, but I think this is it. So, like there's a Harry Potter patterned one that I don't know that I would wear on a video because you can't really tell that it's that, but maybe I will. Maybe I'll do that next. But today, coming home from school and changing real quick, I didn't want to put a blouse on. Anywho, so our book club discussed this one. I'm sure I gave it like 3 out of 5. It's an interesting topic. It is talking about the number of girls, women, who basically it was their job to make sure the pure German population was growing during World War II, that era. It's full of lots of personal stories. I think it's 4 different points of view. Not all of them are women who are carrying children, trying to make the perfect German. Some of them are carrying children that are not the perfect German, but they think that's what's happening, or like people around them think that's what's happening. And then there's one that's a nurse from the point of view of a nurse. So it's different. It's different. But again, historical fiction, not my thing. But if you're looking, and like even today, like my students, why do I keep calling them that? Sorry, my students are freshmen. And every quarter you have to pick an independent book that you're reading. I let you read usually about 10 minutes at the beginning of class. You're reading your own book. And then we do several activities with that book. And just today, somebody said, I want a World War II book. So it is very popular. I like to start my freshmen off either reading like a very short classic of one of those books, or something they've heard of before, or historical fiction, because those are pretty accessible books. So if that's you, I did learn a lot. The Holocaust is not my favorite topic to read about. Historical fiction is not my favorite genre. Moving on. So I talked to you about that one. That was the last one. So then number 13. So I discovered a new series. Isn't it lovely? I love when this happens. So I was looking through, you know how those lists like best of the year come out or whatever. So I was looking at those at the beginning of 2025, and this author came up, Annalise Ryan, and this particular series came up, the Monster Hunter series. So it looks kind of cozy-ish. So I don't know if it was this particular book. I think it was a different book that was more current. But I went and looked at it, and I'm like, this sounds like a series that I would enjoy, because I love listening to Bigfoot stories. I read when I can find something, but quite frankly, I mean, I really hope that if you're listening and you're a Bigfoot fan, you have some suggestions for me. I listen to the podcast, Sasquatch, Terror in the Woods, Sasquatch Chronicles. I listen to both of those podcasts pretty religiously. Like, I really enjoy those. I try not to miss an episode. I've read the Bigfoot Terror in the Woods. I ordered one of his books and read it. It's very much him, but I like listening to him tell the stories, not really reading the stories. And then I've had a couple of books along the way that I've read, fiction and nonfiction sprinkled in there. I really wish, I can't think of the one that I really, really liked. I can't think of the title. I'll try and put it like in the notes when I tell you about a death in Door County. I'll try and put it down there. I can't remember. It's just leaving my mind. But there was a really good novel that I read about Bigfoot, a Bigfoot attack on this like secluded colony. I really enjoyed that one. I just can't think of the name of it. But this is really fun. So A Death in Door County was the first one. So I went back and did that one first. I'm listening to the audio and the narrator is fabulous. So if you are an audiobook listener, highly, highly recommend this series, especially if you also like Bigfoot or cryptids in general, because she's a monster hunter, not necessarily Bigfoot. Actually, the first book is not Bigfoot. It's a lake monster, something very close to like Loch Ness, but it's in Wisconsin, in Door County. It's called A Death in Door County. The humor is good. Stella's playing with my plants over there. Stella's my rescue dog that I've mentioned before. If you're new here, she's right there. Her bed is right there. But it's cozy-ish. However, even in the first one, like they cover the background of the main character's family being murdered. So not so cozy there, and you get a pretty good description that it's not necessarily off the page there. So that one kind of takes it out of the cozy hallmarks for me. But it's pretty cozy. Small community. She's running a bookstore slash, like, what do you call it? Not embalmed, but like, you know, like if you stuff an animal like a deer's head or whatever. What's that called? Whatever that's called. Taxidermy. She has that kind of a store. So it has like odd things from cryptoids in her store. So small, you know, community. It reminds me quite a bit of the Cat Who series, like Jim Quillen, where he's independently wealthy. Someone has left him a fortune. Her parents were very wealthy. She's been left a fortune. So she runs the store, but she really doesn't have to. She doesn't need to make money. I'm not that person. I would love to be that person. I'm not that person. But she's also very generous with her money. So another part of the story I really like. A cop comes and talks to her, cop or park ranger? Cop, I think. Comes and talks to her about some mysterious things going on, and he wants to hire her privately. And then love interest. And it's a great love interest, lots of banter going back and forth, some innuendos, tongue-in-cheek humor. I loved it. I thought it was fabulous. I loved it. Gave it 5 stars. It's not a literary work, though, so if that's what you're looking for, you know, this isn't the one. But I loved it, and I'm going to listen to the whole series, and I actually even get to the second one before we get done with today. The next one I've had on my shelf for a long time. I don't know where I picked it up. It's Winter Brides, Denise Hunter, Deborah Rainey, Betsy St. Amant. So 3 short stories, December, January, and February. They all focus on brides. I started reading it, and then I'm like, something a little fishy's going on, and then I flipped it over. It is Thomas Nelson Zondervan fiction, which means it's Christian fiction. Not that I didn't like it. It was just obviously something going on. That's not the moral to the story. That each of the stories would stand alone. You could read any of them. It's just a little Christianized. I enjoyed it. 3 novellas is what it's called, Winter Brides. I'm not sure where you would pick it up because it's been out there for a long time. I don't know where I picked it up at, but I enjoyed it. 2014 is the copyright on that. My number 15 was Speak by Lori Halls Anderson. I have talked about that book and reviewed it for you many times, but I am also, in addition to teaching just freshman English, I have general and honors. I have 5 sections of that, and then I have 1 elective this year, and it's a young adult literature one. It's an elective. We've been working through some books. I had one class first semester, and then they moved out in December. New ones came in January, so I'm reading I read Speak Again. So that was my number 15. Highly recommend Lori Halls Anderson Speak. I really wish every freshman should read it. I try and get it in as many hands as I can. And again, it was a winner. Like, they were on the edge of their seat. I read it to them. It's a small class. I think originally the way the class was being pitched, I got to pitch the class, but when he said, hey, you know, tell me what it is you want to teach, and I said young adult literature, I was thinking it would be like I would get lots of people who love to read sign up for this class. And it's been kind of half and half. I definitely had people that really like to read that picked the class. I have other people that just got put in the class. And then I got people that picked the class not knowing what they were doing. But first day of class, both semesters, I tell them like, hey, here's what's going on. If this is not for you, you need to find somewhere else to be. And, you know, I had, I think 3 people left the class at the beginning of the semester, maybe a couple at the beginning of last semester, but not as many. But now I also know like, hey, it did work. Like, this is what we're doing. We have 4 books. We read them together. I read a lot to you. You have the opportunity to read. We do a couple of activities. But if you are not going to listen and participate, you're in the wrong class, because that's where your grade's coming from. And last semester and this semester, not one person did not enjoy this book. They all enjoyed this book. They were on the edge of their seat reading it, discussing it, doing the projects for it. It's a winner. It's a winner. I wish all my freshmen would read this book. That being said, there's some trigger warnings in there. I'm not big on trigger warnings. I don't tell these kids what the trigger warning is. I tell them to look it up if they have trigger warnings. Otherwise, then it's better if you just discover what is going on. And it worked out. It's worked out well. Then my number 16th book was the second book in the Monster Hunter series, Death in the Dark Wood by Annalise Ryan. It's Annelise. I'm sure you could read that in the notes, but in case you don't want to go there, it was just as good. Now, this one was Bigfoot centered. The interesting thing so far about these books is you think, since it's a cozy mystery and she's a cryptoid hunter, that she's going to catch all the cryptoids, right? Or prove their existence. And that's not necessarily. Okay, had a little snafu there. It like all of a sudden like stopped recording. Like, why? And I had it plugged in, so I'm like, I don't understand. Well, yeah, I had it plugged into the diffuser. So not the actual iPad charger. So yeah, there was that. And it was like dead when I came home today. I forgot to charge it. So whatever. Anywho, I'm talking to you about Death in the Dark Woods by Annalise Ryan, the number 2 book in the Monster Hunter series. And I backed it up to make sure like what it had cut off. So yeah, this one is Bigfoot centered. That is the cryptoid she is trying to chase down. The opening of it, again, a little not cozy, a little more gruesome than cozy mysteries probably would allow. It's walking you through the point of view of a guy who's out hunting and comes across something. And then later you find out like what happened there. But just the big thing to remember is, even though they are called the Monster Hunter series, this is not like, you know, like a cozy mystery that's focused on ghosts where there are indeed ghosts. You don't know yet. And not every instance in the book is turning out to be a cryptoid. So I don't want to ruin anything for you, but it's super good. I love the banter between her and the boyfriend. Not even boyfriend, I don't think they've called it that yet. But the developing relationship is great. Her developing backstory is great. His developing backstory comes in a little more in this one. Just looking, like I said, my grades are coming in, and I have students that are trying to make up stuff. So if I get a notice, I'm like just trying to make sure there's not somebody floating out there that has some big issue. It's a fabulous audio. Again, highly recommend this on audio. I also got the ebooks from my library, and I would read a little bit that way too, but I just enjoyed the narrator so much on this one. That's how I want to enjoy this series. I have checked out the 3rd book in the series already. I haven't started it because I was trying to finish something else first, but I love it. I love the Bigfoot. I love the cryptoid information. I really like the main character. I think it's a fabulous series. So that's number 16. Number 17 is The Women by Kristen Hanna. Unpopular opinion here. I don't love it. My book club loved it though. Once again, they've chose historical fiction. You know, like I said, we did Cradles in the Reich, and then we did this one. So the people who suggested them maybe could have like not put them back to back. Yeah, because again, for those of us who don't love war fiction or historical fiction, doing 2 in a row, it worked out this time because we were supposed to do Cradles in the Reich in January and this one in February or March. I think it was last week, so it was like March 3rd or something. But because the January meeting kept getting put off because of snow, and then it went into February, and then it got canceled, we ended up just talking about both of them at the same time, so it did work out. But if you are into historical fiction, Kristen Hanna, I can't imagine you've made it without reading her, because I'm not a fan of historical fiction, and I've read The Nightingale, The Great Alone, and The Four Woods. I'm pretty sure we did all 3 of those for book club. I also did what's it called? Firefly Lane, though, on my own as like a summer read. And then I just decided, Hannah, I'm not her audience. So I'll throw that one out there. If you like historical fiction, you know, it's a good story. The thing is, the topic is great. It's the same thing as Cradles in the Rye. These are the women that served during the Vietnam conflict, which was one of the points at my book club. I'm the youngest one there. I'm not. There's one person that's a little younger than me, but I'm it, really. Like, most of our members are older. They're retired. I was the only one going to work the next day, let's put it that way. They loved this topic because it is shocking how many women were involved in the Vietnam conflict that were not recognized. So that was a great topic of conversation, and most of these women grew up during the Vietnam conflict. Their family members, their boyfriends were being sent to Vietnam or choosing to go to Vietnam, or husbands served in Vietnam. Like, it was very interesting. It's why I love my book club. Even if I'm not reading historical fiction on my own, I read it and then discuss it with them, and they always make me thankful that I've read the book. So there's that. The 18th book I read was another Agatha Christie. It was 3 Blind Mice and Other Stories. So they were short stories. We just met last Friday. We meet on Zoom if you'd like to join us. You know, you can always private message me, or the link to the Facebook group, I think, is even in the notes most of the time. But we have a group in Facebook, but then we meet via Zoom about every 3 or 4 weeks. This last time we had all but one person of our regular attenders. So we had 6 people. And that was really interesting. It was a great conversation. So this is number 52 of our reading Agatha Christie in chronological order. I also listened to the audio, watched the adaptations, of which there are several. The narration on the audio is by Joan Hickson and David Suchet and Fraser, what's his name? I can't think of his first name, but he does, you know, all of the Hastings ones. Simon Vance was a new narrator on here. I had not heard his voice before, but, you know, full of Christie hallmarks. The stories are all full of Christie hallmarks. The 3 Blind Mice is part of the story that's based on the Mousetrap, which is the very secret play that is still the longest running show in England or in the world. I don't know, the longest running play in the world, I think, where the members are sworn to secrecy for the end, but this is supposed to be pretty close to that one. And that one was really good. It takes up the bulk of the book. Why don't I have it here? Aha! My copy was called The Mousetrap and Other Stories. The Mousetrap and 3 Blind Mice are synonymous. It's just one is the British title, and the other one is the title used in the United States. The stories are Strange Jest, well, 3 Blind Mice, obviously, Mousetrap. Strange Jest, Tape Measure Murder, The Case of the Perfect Maid, The Case of the Caretaker, The Third Floor Flat, The Adventure of Johnnie Waverly, 4 and 20 Blackbirds, and The Love Detectives, of which several of these are in the BBC adaptations, either Miss Marple or Hercule Poirot. Third Floor Flat, The Adventure of Johnnie Waverly, 4 and 20 Blackbirds, all of those are part of the adaptations. The Love Detectives is one that has Satterthwaite and Mr. Quinn, so we haven't seen them in a long time, so that's nice. We also have run out of Hastings stories on the Hercule Poirot books, if I'm not mistaken, but he's in one of these short stories, so that was nice. These were technically written starting back in maybe 1925 and then sporadically, but this is the first time they were collected into a book, and that's why it fell into our number 52 with the timing of them. So highly recommend as far as short stories, but I'm not a big short story fan, especially when it comes to the Agathas. I have not enjoyed those as much as the actual novels. But the Agatha Christie ones in here, I'm sorry, the Miss Marple ones in here, I feel like we get to know her a little more. There are several times that like specific people talk about her. And I like that because I don't know Miss Marple yet. I feel like we've not had great stories. Like The Body in the Library, she's in that, but she's barely in it. Like it's not in there that much, right? So those are the books that I finished since the last time I talked to you. So that will be these three guys. So now I want to move to this section here, which are some of those like revisits. So for this one, I'm going to lean a little more heavily on my document so that I can make sure that I'm catching those. So I'm just going to put it here on my lap so that it makes a little more sense, okay? Let me make sure I didn't miss anything on those though. Okay, I'm happy with that. So remember I told you, I kind of reviewed for you, I had read The Chainsaw Man. I wanted to just touch on a couple of things that one of my students, when he did read the book and turned in his project for that this past quarter, I wanted to share with you a couple of his thoughts because I think he probably did a better job of describing it than I did. I enjoyed Chainsaw Man. It's a graphic novel. The way that I read it was online, so it felt a little choppy. But he mentioned some things that I would just like to throw out there. So this might be a little choppy too, but that's okay. He calls this a romance manga. He really likes the relationships between the characters. He says that some of the relationships in Chainsaw Man are supposed to represent a family, and I would believe that. Even in the opening, like it's a boy who's living on his own, adolescent who's living on his own. And you can tell he does not have a family and he's not well kept, like he needs help. And then as he starts to collect relationships, you can see how they're trying to form a family, a non-traditional kind of family. So here's a good quote that he threw out there. Makima says this in the book. I provided a family that would get along with you. Aki became a good big brother to you, and Power, the bratty little sister. And then later on, DG comments about how this family gets destroyed and how he later on rebuilds a family like that. I get that. That makes sense to me. He also points out there's a little bit of grooming going on, which I noticed whenever I read it, but this is the kid who told me to read the book, and we've had good conversations like about the kinds of books that he reads and why Chainsaw Man is so popular, so it works out. I like his 3 points. The reason that the main character is interested in Makima is because number 1, she's a woman. Number 2, she feeds him. Number 3, she is the control devil. It's really good. All right, so I just wanted to give you a couple of those little thoughts that he said, because we've had a lot of really good conversations, and he wrote about it quite a bit in his notebook, and I thought that he did a better job talking about some of the story arcs maybe, because I had only read a portion of it, and he's read the entire thing. Just a little update. I had mentioned that I made a note so that February of 2026, I would like to focus a little more on poetry. I haven't read a ton of poetry, and I always set them out and then I don't get to it. So I just need to plan out my reading a little better for next year. I have some really weird thing going on with my hair here. I apologize. It's because it's the end of the day and I've reclipped it several times. So it doesn't look great. I apologize. Anywho, hope that didn't make it worse. I wanted to update you. I reviewed for you Barbara Kingsolver's what's it called? Demon Copperhead, which is fabulous. 5-star read. Everybody should read it. It's stunning. But she announced on social media that she took some proceeds from that book and built a center so that people can get services there in the thread of the Demon Copperhead novel, like, the Appalachia drug problem. There's a Demon Copperhead facility, basically, that she said this is for demon. It was lovely. It was a lovely post. So if you're not following Barbara Kingsolver on social media, I highly suggest that you do. I have a hard time saying she is my favorite author, but she is up there. I don't have a favorite author or favorite book, but she is up there, and her books are up there for me. All right, I think the first one that I wanted to kind of revisit with you is Sarah Von Brethnick. I had recommended her book, and I think I already put it somewhere, so I don't know where that book is. If you remember, I was talking to you about like books that you would read throughout the year, like a day book, and I mentioned Sarah Von Brethnick's Simple Abundance. Why can't I find it? I'm not really sure where I sat those. Like, there's my nonfiction ones that I've covered on YouTube are over here in this corner. I don't know if you can really see that corner. I feel like you can't. It's more like that way, kind of there, where you see like the sociopath book. But I don't see it there. So maybe I had those sitting somewhere else. I know I was going to try and work with them and put them more here, which these are my holiday books or the books that go by the year. So it may be in there, but either way, I know I talked to you about Sarah Von Brethnick's Simple Abundance. I've read it numerous times. It's a day book, but I was looking in the other room. I have more books. I know, shocking. But I found this one, Sarah Von Brethnick's Moving On. And it is Creating Your House of Belonging with Simple Abundance. And it's a weird size. I don't know if you can tell that. Whew, had to sneeze. I don't know if you can tell that or not, but this is on my to be read list. So I wanted you to know that I added that one to my to be read list. And I am also currently reading Mrs. Sharp's Traditions, which I talked to you about in episode 56 also. So I just needed to add that one to my to be read list. I think I have a couple more that I need to do in that review, but I think they're down there and I have these up here. So I'm going to switch over and then I'll come back to them. Okay. So the next segment that I usually do are books that I've recommended to you or I'm trying to recommend to you. Some of these are from the classroom. Some of these are holiday books that I seem to have just talked about but forgot to mention. Or I feel like there was something else I wanted to say about them. Okay. Since episode 39, so I'm on episode 58. Since episode 39, I've tried to be methodical about telling you about the books that I'm recommending in my classroom. And just making sure that I gave you a full review on those. And so I would start off with Sarah Dessen. I picked up some of these in a recent book haul and started talking to you about her. So just wanted to go back because I felt like I kind of missed doing that justice. So Sarah Dessen, the one that I picked up in the book haul was Just Listen, and this is my favorite by her. Highly, highly recommend it, and I picked up one for the classroom. So I had a copy and I picked up one for the classroom. I've read lots of Sarah Dessen books. I probably need to like pull her books down and out and just talk to you for a little bit about her. And so, you know, one of those future videos that I'm always promising and fail to follow through with, but plan on it. But I recommended Sarah Dessen in 32, 33, 35, 36. So it's been a while. So that's why I wanted to make sure that I talked to you about Just Listen. I added a thrifted copy in the last episode. I'm taking it to the classroom. I have already reviewed it on Goodreads and in my classroom this year. But I just am not sure that I really talked to you about it. So I just talked to you about Speak. And I remember when I read Speak and then years later this came up, I was like, it's the same story. Why are we reading this again? Okay, but it's not. I am going to take the time to read the back of this to you because I think it's important. Annabelle Green is the girl who has everything. At least that's what she portrays in her modeling shoots. But Annabelle's life is far from perfect. Her friendship with Sophie ended bitterly, and her older sister's eating disorder is weighing down the entire family. Isolated and ostracized at school and at home, Annabelle retreats into silent acceptance. Then she meets Owen, intense, music obsessed, and determined to always tell the truth. And with his guidance, Annabelle learns to just listen to herself and gains the courage to speak honestly. But will she be able to tell everyone what really happened the night she and Sophie stopped being friends? It's so good. The themes may be similar to Speak, but it is told in a very fresh and different way. I highly recommend it. High school, I would say high school and up. Sarah Dessen is just fabulous. I've read so many of her books. I've recommended several of them to you. I still have several books by her that I also want to read. So I talked to you about Someone Like You, and I'll see if I need to add others in there too. But on my TBR list, I have Along for the Ride, Saint Anything, The Truth About Forever, and What Happened to Goodbye. So I have several copies of her books. I just need to read more of them. So might be a summer project there. I'll put it on the back burner and see what happens. But I highly recommend Just Listen by Sarah Dessen. I'm going to take this and put it in the classroom. The next one that I wanted to talk to you about is Brandon Sanderson, Steelheart. I love this book. I think it's fabulous. I have reviewed it for you in 37 and 38, but it had just been a while. So I just wanted to take a minute to throw that back out there. Again, high school and up, but definitely if you are an adult and you like superheroes, this very much reminds me more of the movie with Will Smith, what's it called? Hancock. Very much reminds me of that. Because the superheroes are not heroes, they're just super. And there is a very normal kid at the center of the story who interacts with those, I think they're called epics, and has bad interactions with them and then sets out to make things right in the world. It's super, super good. It was my first Sanderson. I loved it. I also read the Librarian series. I can't remember what that was called. Alcatraz and the something Librarians or something like that. It was just okay. But I really like this, Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians. That one was okay. It's more middle grade, whereas this is more high school or above. I just really love it. I highly recommend this one. I think I just gave it to a student for the 4th quarter. I think I talked him into it. I listened to a podcast that had Martha Beck on it for a speaker. I have not read this. This is The Joy Diet. This is on my to-be-read list, and I'll find that podcast for you. It was one of the women self-help people. Where's my phone? Let me look real quick. Mel Robbins. It was the Mel Robbins podcast. Yeah. She was being interviewed on that. Mel Robbins apparently is a good friend of hers. They've been together. They've been friends. I said together, but like Mel Robbins, I think, attended a workshop that Martha Beck was doing, and then they've been close ever since. So that's on my to-be-read list. I did read Expecting Adam by Martha Beck, and it was phenomenal. I think it's my sister's favorite book, if I'm not mistaken. I read it because of her. I don't know if I have a review out there for that, so if not, I'll add it. But yeah, I want to read The Joy Diet. I think that will be a good nonfiction one. I'm trying to finish the books I've started before I start a new one though, like especially when it comes to nonfiction. So I'll get to it, but I'm not there yet. So I'm trying to make a concerted effort this year to help you with some seasonal, like holiday reading, because it's one of my favorite things to do. And I think I just failed to show you the covers of these two the last time I referred to them, but I just went ahead and pulled them off the shelf. So it's Heather Weber, but it's Weber, 2 B's. Truly Madly, I think, is the first one, and this one I've read, and Deeply Desperately is on my to-be-read list. Is that right? I feel like that's right. They're the Lucy Valentine mystery series, more like romance mysteries rather than cozy. I also read her series At the Coffee Shop of Curiosities, which is a little more woo-woo, but I enjoyed that one too. Yeah, so I've read Truly Madly, and I've reviewed it for you. A5, 17, 40, and 44. I've talked about Heather Weber, and then this one's on my to-be-read list, but it's Lucy Valentine, so I'm just gonna set them aside and then read these next February is my game plan. Another one that I've mentioned to you, but I don't have a copy of it, that I wanted to read in February and then didn't get to, is Leslie Meyer. She is a cozy mystery person that I've read some of her stuff before. She has one called Valentine Candy Murder, and I do plan on reading that one. She also has one that's like chocolate covered murder, so I'll return to those, maybe Easter even. I'll look and see, but I think most of those are probably going to be Valentine's. I don't think I showed you the cover of these books the last time. I might have mentioned them, but I didn't have them to show you at the time. They were around somewhere. But Christie Boyce, Hot British Boyfriend, I'm going to read that for Books by the Banks. That's where I met that author. I had picked up this book, and it's been in my to-be-read You Lucky Dog by Julia London. That looks super fun, but maybe summer. I might be able to do that one more in summer. This Caitlin Hill, Love from Scratch. She's another Books by the Banks author, so in the summer, so that I can be prepared for that in the fall. And then Modern Lovers by Emma Stroop. So these were all on my to-be-read. I keep talking about them, but I didn't have my hands on them last time, and I always like to show you the book if you're watching the videos. So throwing those guys out there. I also have Melissa De La Cruz, who I've read some stuff by her, but I had this Bloody Valentine, like this super short book, and I didn't get to books that I wanted to, all the books that I wanted to during February. I love Waiting for Tom Hanks by Carrie Winfrey, and she is at Books by the Banks. I think that's how I ended up with this book, if I'm not mistaken. But I have a couple of books by her that I want to read for Books by the Banks in the fall. I've said it a dozen times in the last 5 minutes here, but Books by the Banks, Cincinnati. It was held at the public library this last year. It's a fabulous free book event for book lovers. You get up close and personal with the authors. I highly, highly recommend it. Get it on your calendar, search for it on Facebook. I'll put a link in the show notes. But usually like October or November is when that particular event is. Also for Valentine's, I did not get to 84 Charing House Street. I want to do that one. I flipped through this one. It's very short. They're little love letters. I think I've read some, but not the whole thing. So I definitely want to get back to this and actually read 84 Charing Cross Road. It's a love fiction novel, is my understanding. I talked to you in the last video and didn't get to show you David Leviathan's The Lover's Dictionary. Highly recommend this one. It's very short. Each word of the dictionary has a personal telling by David Leviathan. It's so lovely. Alternative relationships, you can tell that are in there. It's so fun, and it's just a weird format. It is a dictionary. Each page is a word in the dictionary defined, but then also a little story kind of about how it relates to their relationship. I've shown you this too, Love is Walking Hand in Hand by Charles Schultz, the Peanuts guy. And I just love this one. I think it's adorable. It has a little illustration, a little quip on the side. So I just didn't get a chance to show you that the last time. I don't know why I didn't have them down or something. And then the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society by Marianne Schaefer and Annie Burroughs. And you know what? I told you I don't like historical fiction. This is historical fiction, and it's one of my all-time favorite books. Like, I love this book. Guernsey is a little area that was kind of forgotten after the war, and it was occupied, and they just kind of forgot to take the occupation away after the war. And these people were really struggling trying to make ends meet, and they would meet, and it was like found family, that whole, like, as they continued to meet together and make sure people were fed and taken care of, they became family. There's some love stories in there. There's a displaced child. Again, found family. It's so lovely. If you've not read this book, read it now or during the summer. This is a great hammock book, beach book. But if you don't get to it, put it on your list for February and read it next year. Are you making out your calendar for 2026? Because I already am. All right, let me do some moving around. Okay, so I don't know about you, but it feels springy here. Like on our drive home as we were pulling into, we live in a gated community, and while we were pulling up to the little pedestal thing and my husband put his window down, I was like, what is that? And I hit the pause button on the radio, or, you know, mute or whatever. And I'm like, it's frogs. You can hear the frogs. So definite signs of spring here. So I'm starting to get my pile of what I want to read over spring together. The ones that I will take on spring break if I do indeed get to go on spring break, which would just be down to visit my son and daughter-in-law, but still I get to read usually that week because they're usually still working. My husband goes fishing. Stella and I get to hang out at the house and read, or go out on the boat and read. It's so lovely. So anywho, the one book I know I want to take with me is Allie Hazelwood's Love on the Brain. It was in my haul last month. I have already read Allie Hazelwood, Love Hypothesis, which I absolutely loved. So this one's definitely going with me on spring break. I'm just getting that, that list together, and I wanted to tell you that. So I'm not sure if I showed you these or not. I had somebody who had donated like a set of Anna Green Gables books to the classroom, and then not long after I picked up some from, you know, like thrift store that was the same kind of series. And so they kind of go back and forth there, as well as some that I have had from the past. So I recommend them in class. We have several copies that are in class there, and then I have some copies that are here at home. I don't think either is a full set, but it doesn't really matter. I have recommended Anne of Green Gables by Ellen Montgomery to you before, so I know I've done that and I've recommended it to my students, but I'm not sure if I actually have shown you this particular series. It's not series that I'm thinking about, this particular edition. I'm pretty sure it's the same edition that was donated to the classroom, pretty sure. They're beautiful though. If you see, like, this is the dust jacket, and then the actual book series looks like this. So they're very well done. And they're older, but I wanted to show you these particular ones. So Anne of Windy Poplars, Anne of the Island, Chronicles of Avonlea, Anne of Ingleside, Anne's House of Dreams, Further Chronicles of Avonlea, and Anne of Avonlea. So like I said, I don't think it's a complete series. I don't have a complete series here. I don't have a complete series at school that were the donated ones. But that's okay because they're beautiful and I think it's a great set. And then we have Emily's Quest, which is another character and series with Ellen Montgomery, Emily Climbs, and Emily of New Moon. And these are all ones that this says first, second, and third in the series. So like that, I guess. These are all books that eventually I will get to, like in my retirement years maybe, but I will get to these. It will be another set that after I maybe do Agatha and I do The Murder, She Wrote, it would be another series that I would pick up, and I want to read every one of them in the series. I think this would be a super comforting one. I'm not going to call it a cozy, but a comforting read. I think that Anne of Green Gables books are probably geared toward intermediate to middle, but at this point in the juncture, high school girls definitely haven't read these, and I think that I could find some that might appreciate it, but quite frankly, not many of my high schoolers are going to read these books. I can't sell it to them. I honestly did not know about this series until I was in college and heard from it from my friends who had read all the books and watched all the movies. And then one weekend we went and rented the movies from the library, and that was my introduction to Anne of Green Gables, and then I read them. So I love the series. I think it's a beautiful addition, and I plan to eventually get to these and try and sell the other ones to my students for them to pick up and read on their own. And again, every once in a while I get a little bite, but it's a hard one. It's not one that they often gravitate toward. So I'm a little disjointed on the video today, and I hope you don't mind because it is a conversation and we don't obviously organize our conversation. So a little more stream of consciousness today. But it came up today. That's why I'm thinking about it. But The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I read that and I reviewed that for you last year. It was my 74th book, and it came up in conversation today in the classroom, and I said, well, somebody was recommending it to someone beside them, and I said, yeah, well, if you're going to read it, you want to read it now before it becomes a movie. And the girl who read it said, it's going to be a movie. Yes, it's going to be a movie. The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. So yeah, the book is probably R-rated. The movie's probably going to be R-rated, but my freshmen are reading it. They're borrowing the books from their mothers, so there's that. But keep an eye out for that in case you don't know. That's also going to be a movie. And then Verity is also going to be a movie. I think that one is the one, Verity by Colleen Hoover. That's the one that has Anne Hathaway as one of the characters, and I just could not come up with that today. All right, one that I know that I shouldn't say I know. I have not actually mentioned this one to you, and I can't believe that I haven't. And I don't have my printed out Goodreads here, so I'm just going to pull that up real quick. But that would be Kite Runner. I thought I had talked to you about that. I really can't believe that I haven't, but I don't have it down that I've talked to you about this one. I think I had mentioned, like, one of my students last quarter read this, 1,000 Splendid Suns by Khalid Hosseini, and maybe that's when I realized that I had not talked to you about Kite Runner. But Kite Runner's the one that I read. This is male perspective. I think this is more about the women of Afghanistan. But I highly recommend Kite Runner. If you've not read it, then probably what happened there is that they turned it into a movie, and then some of you may have seen the movie and then not gone back to read the book. You need to, even if you've seen the movie. They're both well done. You need to experience both of them. I always say when it comes to Kite Runner that the thing with Kite Runner is that it will explain how the Taliban came to be. Like when you find out the horrific things that the Taliban does, you're like, how could any human being do that? And so much of that is because that is their history also. Terrible, terrible things done to them, inhumane things done to them. And it just continues down the line. Addiction, drugs, abuse. It's awful. And that's what made them into the monsters that they are. Kite Runner is just phenomenal. Khalid Husseini, he was a speaker at the Cincinnati Public Library years ago, and I went and heard him in person, and he was a phenomenal speaker. I highly recommend this book. It's a 5-star read for me. Kite Runner is. It's one of my favorite books. It's turned into a fabulous movie. I have a copy of this in my classroom. I still think it's more like for adult audiences or mature readers. I have some mature readers. I was super shocked that my freshman girl picked this one up to read it, and I told her when she picked it up, I'm like, that's a really heavy topic, and that's written for an adult audience. So as you're reading it, if it becomes too much, like, don't worry, just set it down and pick something else. And she slugged through that thing, man. And I mean, she just kept saying, you're not going to believe this. You're not going to believe this. You're not going to believe this. So I have that on my TBR so that I can talk to her about it. But man, it's hard to gear myself up to read that because my gosh, it's tough, right? So this is another one that came up, and then I realized I didn't have a review out there for you. So I put a review out there, and I need to print it. But I have it pulled up on Goodreads here. Catherine Howell, she is usually also at Cincinnati Books by the Banks. This is the Physics Book of Deliverance Dane. We read it with our book club years and years ago. Now she has several others that I want to read, and she has some nonfiction ones on like the Salem witches that I would really like to read. But this is a really interesting one told from a different perspective. So this is the kind of historical fiction I like. It's more modern historical fiction, but Harvard graduate student Connie Goodwin needs to spend her summer doing research for her doctoral dissertation. But when her mother asks her to handle the sale of Connie's grandmother's abandoned home near Salem, she can't refuse. And then she tumbles down this road of discovery about her family and their tie to the Salem witch trials. It's fabulous. You get a mix between like 1690 Salem witch trials and witches, that sort of thing, and then modern day. So I highly recommend this one. I want to read more Catherine Howell. I added that review in January, but I read the book back in 2009. It also says it's part of a series, but I was unaware of that. So let me click on that. It says the Physics Book #1. Let's see what else she has written that it says the Physics Book #1. I don't see, why does it say that? Normally if I click on that on Goodreads, it then tells me, oh, there we go. The Daughters of Temperance Hobbs is the second book in the series. I'm gonna mark that one want to read on Goodreads because I was unaware of that. Interesting. Another book that has come up in conversation at school here lately, Philip Pullman, The Golden Compass. We talked about it when we were talking about Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code. It kind of came up in conversation that some of these books have lots of religious symbolism in them. We were talking about C.S. Lewis, his series, which everybody knows, and like Screwtape Letters. So just symbolism and religion in the mix when you're talking about literature. And this book came up, and when I mentioned it, a lot of my kids had never heard of this series. But The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman. So I recommended that one to them, and then I picked up a copy in Thrift not too long ago. So I'm going to add that to the classroom and make that available. I think I have some kids that are going to want to read that particular series. But I reviewed it back in 2020. I think I just wanted to remind you that it's there. I've mentioned this series in episodes 13, 15, 28, 32. This is another series that went to screen and is phenomenally done. I mean, just phenomenal. Great, great movie. I'm surprised they don't know it just by the movie. But they don't appear to. So I highly recommend it. It is a darker fantasy and it is critical of the church. If you're looking for the symbolism in there, it is more critical of the church. So go throw that out there. But I want my readers to be thinking for themselves and to do critique, literary criticism when they're reading a book and be able to talk about it and think about it. And so if they're a strong reader, I think they can handle that. I would say audience for that book is middle school to high school again. And if you're an adult and you haven't read The Golden Compass, you need to read it. And then picked up in a recent book haul a copy of The Shack. Another one, I'm pretty sure I already have a copy of this at school, but I will put another copy at school. It's a phenomenal one. Oopsie, sorry little guy. He said he loves to read, but he doesn't want to be thrown around, I don't think. So I'll be putting a copy of this in the classroom. I talked to you, I think I talked to you about it being hauled back in episode 33, but I added a Goodreads because it didn't have one there before. Stella, you need to sit down. You're not going outside right now. Lay down. Lay down. We'll go later. So this is one of those books that I didn't really think I wanted to read. Somebody told me to read it, and then when I read it, I'm so glad I read it. Turned it into a movie. Again, very well done. Highly recommend the movie. But there is a young family. One of the children are abducted and killed. I'm not giving anything away. It's literally what the book is about. And the family is really struggling with that, obviously, right? And questioning God, like, how could this happen? And so then the father keeps getting these weird messages. He follows the trail to the messages and has an encounter. I'm going to leave it with that, right? It's really, really good. I highly recommend it. High literature, it is not, but the story is unique. The way it's being told is unique, and turning it into the movie, super well done. Easy book to recommend. High school age and up, easily. It definitely has a religious and spiritual meaning, but it's not particular to a religion, if that makes sense. A couple of the Margaret Peterson Haddock's books, like, I don't think I have copies of them. The ones that I have Among the Betrayed and Among the Hidden, which I have not read these. I would say these are more intermediate level books, but I have read a couple of books by her that I have not talked to you about in a bit, and that is Takeoffs and Landings. I have a Goodreads out there, and it just says that I need to talk to you about it on YouTube, so maybe I just haven't. That one's a super good one. There's a brother and a sister. They're traveling, and they're traveling back between their parents. They're in that weird divorced area, and the whole premise is that you don't need to worry about the day-to-day, right? It's the takeoffs and the landings when you're going into an airplane that are the most dangerous times. It's a good read. I gave it four stars because I do often think back of it. I'm sorry, not divorced. I just looked to make sure. It's not divorced. Their father's sudden death 8 years ago. So then they get shifted back and forth between, like, mother taking care of them, and they go, I think it's to grandparents. Chuck and Lori's mom has spent most of her time on the road, leaving them and their younger siblings in the care of their grandparents. But this time the mother is taking them with her, and is trying to, like, reconnect with her kids. It's an odd kind of book for intermediate to middle school reading, but one that usually hits pretty close to home for kids. So I highly recommend Takeoffs and Landings by her. And then Turnabout is the weirdest story, but again, sticks with me. It is built on the premise, it's science fiction based, that you can be alive and growing up, and you decide when you get to that age that, like, you think this is the end all be all and you want to stay at that age. You take a shot and you will be that age forever, right? But something goes wrong. So it's based on the two girls that realize that something has gone wrong and what they end up doing. and how they are making those decisions, science fiction based, and the ramifications of it. It's super good. I love it. That one's called Turnabout. It's very science fiction, and again, intermediate to middle, high school, adult, whatever, but probably targeted more towards intermediate middle. And then, like I said, these two guys, I have these, they're on my TBR, and I don't know that I've shown those to you before. I had purchased this because one of my kids suggested it. It's a graphic novel. It is by Rosemary Valero O'Connell and Mariko Tamiki. I've read some of hers before. I think it's a her. Laura Dean keeps breaking up with me. It's a Prince Honor book, so this is on my TBR. The student that it recommended to me, like, they spoke very highly of it, so I wanted to get it in my hands. This is also another recent haul. It's Joelle Charbonneau, The Testing. It looks very Hunger Games-ish, but I had a kid who barely talks to me, who called me over to his desk and told me all about the series. So I immediately got that first one because if he feels that strongly about it, I think I probably have some kids that might want to read it this quarter. I have also talked to you about A.J. Jacobs in the last, I think it was the last episode that I talked to you about his books that I've read and I love. And some of those are ones that you would read throughout the year. And then I was in the other room and I realized I have two more of his books that are on my TBR shelf, so I wanted to show those to you. Know It All, where he reads through the encyclopedia, and The Guinea Pig Diaries. So remember, his books are nonfiction. He theorizes how something might work. I'm going to have to get up and let Stella out because now I've told her no too many times. Okay, so I let her out and I just left the door open because it's lovely outside. But while I was over there, I wanted to share this with you. I thought this was the coolest thing. So my sister invited me to meet her at a Galentine's event at MedPace, if you're from Cincinnati here. And this lady, she was selling these. She was selling candles and things too, but her husband makes these. But it's coconut, like, jute. And the plant is like, there's a ball of, I think she said it was like coconut mulch that's in there. And then the plant is in that. Now you can see, like, I need to water it again. The only thing with it is, she said, like, you will have to water it like every 3 or 4 days. And I thought that's probably a little excessive. It's really not excessive. And you water it by sitting it down in like a bowl of water, and then it sucks all that water up there. And then it hangs over by the window for me. I love it. I think it's super cool. It's a pothos, obviously. And pothos are, notoriously easy. Can you see, I have one here somewhere. Right here, I've got pothos that's just sitting in a bottle of water. Can you see it? Right there. It's kind of hard to see. It's in that green glass thing. It's just in water. I have one here that's just in water. So they grow super easy. But I just thought that was the coolest thing. But I obviously am going to need to set it in some water because it's struggling. So just adding these two books to my TDR. And let me see where else we are today. That might be it. Can you hear those birds singing? Hold on. There it is. Did you hear it? I hope you can hear it. Like, they're trying to find spring. All right, so we hadn't made it down to visit my son and daughter-in-law in a while. Since October, I think it was. But when I was in town, it just so happened, like, we were down there, it was terrible weather, like tornadoes. They're like in Tornado Alley down there. And because they were getting ready to have a big snowstorm coming up, the local bookstore there, the Book Rack, she's normally closed on Mondays and on holiday. But she was open, and so I popped in there and I picked this up. The Mystery Writers of America cookbook. It was $10. It retails for $25, and I just thought it was amazing. Here are some of those mystery writers that have submitted their recipes. J.A. Jance, Richard Castle, Laura Lippman, Brad Meltzer, Louise Penny, Mary Higgins Clark. I mean, there are all kinds of names in here. There's a bunch, like, and it's just a beautiful layout. Like, want to show you like every page, but here's all the authors, the mystery authors that have submitted recipes to. I just really think it's super cool. It's by Quirk Books, which is a publisher that I always love, but highly, I'm very excited about that. I bought this book off of Amazon. One of my students needed The Trials of Apollo, so adding that one to the collection. I picked this one up at Book Rack of Murray. It was $3.50, John Feinstein's Last Shot, because my kids are always asking for sports books and it's not my forte. I have a student that wants to read a book with me, and she chose Thomas Harris, Kari Mari, and Red Dragon. We'll see if she follows through on that, but I didn't have a copy of those and I thought I did, so I went ahead and picked up copies of those. They had 2 Murder, She Wrote books, Manuscript for Murder and Murder in Red. These were each $6 each, so you can't beat that. And then this is one that I just picked up. It was $3. Conch Shell Murder by Dorothy Francis. I know nothing about it, but you know, that's a Florida book for sure. So that's my book haul. I don't have a ton of book haul for this particular time, but enough that I wanted to show you. If you follow me on social media, I also shared a link, Time Magazine's Most Anticipated Books of 2025. I thought was super interesting. Was super interesting, and some familiar faces on there that you might want to take a look-see at. I also shared one that was the 100 must-read books of 2024. I thought you might want to take a look at. Librarian, who I've mentioned before, has a new book coming out this fall called Under the Same Stars. S.A. Cosby, who I've talked to you about before, The Razorblade Tears is phenomenal. It's hard, like it's a hard story, but it is so good. I want to read more S.A. Cosby. His cringy like horror scenes just haunt me. His characters are nothing like me, and it just makes me want to read more and more. Cleo Coyle, the Coffee House Mystery Series. April 1st, new book came out in the series, No Roast for the Weary, book number 21. I'm on book number 15, so I've got some catching up to do. Remember that Cleo Coyle is a mixture. It's a pseudonym for Alice Alfonsi and her husband Mark Serafini, I think is how you say it. They go by Cleo Coyle, but that's a fun, cozy mystery series. I also on my social media shared a link to the ultimate list of 2025 book-to-screen adaptations. If you're following me, I wanted to update you that Tommy Adeyemi, who I have recommended that book, Children of Blood and Bone. It came out in 2018. I read it and reviewed it, but the filming rights have been sold to someone else, so pretty sure that's going to be a thing. Projected 2027 release date, so that's going to take us a little while to get back to that one. But it's a West African inspired fantasy. It's phenomenal. I listened to the audio and I loved it. Disney has a new retelling of the story Holes, with the main character being a female. Anna Huang, I have not read the book, but Twisted Love is coming to Netflix. I need to get that series read because my kids love that. New season of Bosch. Remember, Bosch is also based on a book series. Bosch Legacy is coming out March 27th on Prime. Agatha Christie, Toward Zero, is already out in Britain, but comes to the United States in April. I watched the first episode of Travels with Agatha with David Suchet. It's a 5-part series. It's following her 1920s travels, and it was good. I don't love those kinds of shows. I kind of keep them on in the background as I'm like grading, but it's beautiful graphics being on the screen there, and I love David Suchet. There is a, Margot Robbie is doing a retelling of Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights. So I probably need to listen to that one. It's been a long time since I read that one. But that's supposed to come out in 2026. Verity, Colleen Hoover, Dakota Johnson and Anne Hathaway. That one they're still taping or filming. Let's see. Rebecca Yaros explained that she has given the overall arc of the story to filmmakers. So while they're trying to do Fourth Wing, they know what's coming up, but there's no release date on that yet. And then I'll leave you with another thing that I shared on social media. Bryn Brown on her Instagram. So she's an author. I don't think I've covered her on my YouTube chats before, but like self-help, inspirational kind of thing. She shared some like pictures of how she annotates, and it says, "This is exactly how I love to read, and sadly how I rarely find myself actually reading." And that is, there's such a universal craving for deep reading, deep thinking, and deep connection, all requiring deep time, which is a rare in a world of shallow distraction. I'm so struck by Maya Smart's take on this and the phrase, the privilege of focus. And I love that. I think that that's huge for me. I love to read, and I read in little snippets all throughout the day. I read with my students. I read out loud. I read to myself. During my planning, I'll pick up something or read a little snippet before I get started grading or planning. I come home, I read a little snippet out in the, on the porch or in the driveway while I'm waiting for Stella. We listen to audiobooks when we're on our walks. I listen to audiobooks in the morning sometimes when I'm getting ready, but usually that's podcasts. But I get snippets. What I don't get a lot of is that deep reading. It's why I love to stay home on a Saturday or Sunday morning, get up and read before John gets up and moving and we head to church. It's that deep reading where I get to concentrate. I can sit in here in my library, open up book after book, read my Bible, journal, update my day-to-day like remembrances, and then take something and read. It's what I'm doing right now with Atomic Habits with a friend. We've been reading it the last couple of months, and it's been phenomenal. I told him, I'm like, this is life-changing. Being able to read this slowly and then share a nugget of truth, and then he shares a nugget of truth, and we're just kind of messaging back and forth on Facebook Messenger when we complete a chapter, some thoughts that we have on it. It's phenomenal. It's life-changing. I'm able to then implement those strategies into my life. So I love deep reading. I want to do more of it. I hope you get to do more of it. And that's what I really just wanted to share with you. That pretty much covers everything that I had on my list here. So like I said, it's March, what was today? The 11th? March 11th. So it'll take me a little bit to get this edited and out there because, like I said, grades are due. So I'll, do a little bit, take a break, edit, whatever. Let me know if you are reading something that I'm reading, you're looking for something in particular, you want to recommend something to me, really looking for Bigfoot fiction or nonfiction. I know like that is a shot in the dark, but it's what I want. Let me know if it is something in particular that you're looking for. Happy almost spring. March 21st, right? We're about 10 days out from officially spring. I think that's usually when it is, 21 or 22. If you're celebrating Lent, my thoughts are with you. I love to, it's another one of the things I'm super interested in. I would love to talk to you about Lent, how you practice, what you think of it. I am not Catholic, but our church is observing a Lenten digital fast. So yeah, we were allowed to decide what that meant for us, and I've been implementing some strategies there that I think have been very interesting to me. But it's been great spending the day with you. So I am at an hour and almost 20 minutes on the second time, after my computer failed the first time. So I think I had only filmed for 15 minutes when it finished the first time. So about probably an hour and a half of video footage. I will cut that down as much as I possibly can for you. And if you are following me and you've stuck with me this far, I'm a liar. I never am able to narrow it down. But thank you for those of you that have given me the feedback that you enjoy it no matter how long it takes me to talk about the books that I've read since the last time I talked to you, or recommend the ones that I have in class. A sheriff just went by. Dun, dun, dun. They patrol the lake quite a bit, so that's actually comforting. Anywho, I'm happy to be your friendly librarian. All of the books that I've talked to you about today, you can get for free from your public library. Use Libby, walk in, tell them that you need access to the ebooks and the audiobooks. Look around your public library, renew your library card. In today's day and age, it's very, very important that you utilize that resource so that it does not go away. Be vocal about your use of the public library. That being said, I also watched like a TikTok of somebody who was like saying like we should not be utilizing Amazon or Goodreads as readers for your reading rights. I hear ya. I try and buy as much of my books as I can from thrift, secondhand, independent bookstores. That is not always convenient when you live in the middle of nowhere like I do. So there's that. And then Goodreads I have been using for, well, I used Shelfari for years, for decades before it switched over to Goodreads. Then I morphed everything over to Goodreads. So I'm sticking with Goodreads for a while. I've heard good things about Storygraph, but just that whole idea of switching to another platform is just not interesting to me. Sell it to me. If you think that that's what I need to be doing, feel free to sell that to me. Okay? Which I haven't named this guy yet. If you've got name suggestions, I'm happy to take them. All of my plants I name and talk to them. I'm pretty sure it helps. Them and me, I would say. But it's been great spending this time with you. What else do I normally say here at the end? You can always get these books at your public library. Be social, follow me, like this video, comment if there's something I can help you with. And I'll see you next time. Happy reading.